Welcome to Martin Explores, the show that looks closely at all things relating to mindset and well-being on a physical, spiritual level. And today's guest is an expert in Goju Ryu karate, following up from Martin Explores Karate with Simon Keegan. I want to talk to Roy Flatt, who I believe is an 8th Dan in Goju Ryu. Is that right, Roy?
Yeah, it is actually, yeah. It is, yeah.
Welcome to the show. Thanks very much for giving me your time today.
Yeah, good morning, Martin. It's nice to see you, mate. Good.
So, Roy, I wanted to leave the introduction to you. Tell me who you are, what you've trained in, and the name of your dojo, please.
My name's Roy Flatt. My dojo's Childwall Karate Academy. Obviously, I live in Liverpool. I have a dojo in Heswell as well, over the water. I'll give you my history. I started in 1971 under two instructors. One was Tony Christian and the other one was Bob Greenhalgh. Two totally different people. One was like a little bull, which was Tony, and Bob was a technician and very thin, but could do everything. So there was a bit of a match there, and then I still trained with them, and then they broke up and went separate ways. So I went with another student called Bob Honeyball, who is actually training today, a great karateka. And we opened the Childwall dojo at the time, and the two of us were running it together. And then he went down south, and Ernie Molyneux, who's now the chief instructor of the EGKA, and my instructor, came into the dojo as well. So again, we shared it together and carried on teaching. In '79, we joined the IOGKF, which is the International Okinawan Goju Ryu Karate Association, and Federation rather. And then I trained obviously in Goju Ryu completely then with Higana Sensei, and I got my 8th Dan in, I think it was 2018, beginning in 2018 or end of 2017. I got a Shian certificate presented to me early 2000s of Higana Sensei. And basically, that's it really. That's me in a nutshell.
So, needless to say, given that you've been studying martial arts since almost as long as I've been alive, you're pretty much an authority on Goju Ryu, aren't you?
I've done a bit, yeah.
Now, I just want people to know, originally I had somebody else in mind to talk to about Goju Ryu, a lifelong friend who's himself a 5th Dan. And he said, no, you must speak to Roy. So I feel as though I've gone from Kilimanjaro to Everest. So, Roy, in your own words, not a dictionary definition, as you know, we've already explored karate and where it came from in a previous episode. Give me your definition. What is Goju Ryu?
Okay, all right, man. That's like, what's the meaning of life, you know? But I'll do it in layman's terms, if you know what I mean. Because a lot of people who don't know about karate wouldn't understand, like Jumbi Undo, Hoji Undo, things like that, what they are. For me, Goju Ryu incorporates virtually everything about martial arts, because we start off, we do a warm-up, and usually every dojo in the IOGKF has like a basic warm-up you do. Now, how many press-ups you do and how many sit-ups you do and whatever else you do is obviously down to you as a karate, what you're doing on the day. But we do a warm-up, and the warm-up is to get you ready to do karate. So it doesn't matter whether you're 60, 70, whatever age you are. Obviously, you gear the warm-up for that person. So now, when you finish that, you can actually start training. So the other thing about Goju Ryu that I like is you use different equipment. So it's not just about kicking and punching. It's the whole circular thing, hitting makawara, the jars, you carry your jars for your grip. You've got all sorts of tissue. You've got different types of things that you use. So your training isn't just, and it could not just be an hour of kicking and punching and doing kata. It could be an hour, 2 hours of doing equipment training, just like going to a gym, lifting weights, hitting bags. It's all part of modern training. Okay, so For me, like, I think if you look at other things, like other styles of boxing and things like that, and you take a little bit of what they do and put it into what you do, obviously you're expanding your own knowledge and library of stuff you can use. So it's such a vast thing, like throws, locks, chokes, different things. So a lot of things that the MMA people use, you would actually use. We have we have a sparring, like our competitions called irikumi, and what they are non-stop fighting. So for instance, if you get up, if you score the point, you don't go back, you don't go yame, go back 1 point, whatever. You carry on fighting, and the judges that are sitting around have clickers, and they click what they see as technique, okay? And if you hit the deck, if you get hit and you go down, you've got 10 seconds to get back up again. If you don't get up, say you get hit in the body with a body shot and you go down, if you don't get up, then it's finished, okay? There's no, like, feigning injury, for instance. You can't do that. And it's done in a circular area, quite a I think it's 8 meters, something like that, circular area. And that's how you fight. So you fight for, say, 2 minutes. And that is slightly different than what most other people do. And you have Ju, which is non-contact, controlled, and you have Go, which is full contact. Obviously, there's not as many Go ones as there is Ju ones, because most people wouldn't be able to train for a good while afterwards with the injuries you're going to see. But it is better for fighting in the street than doing competition fighting, if you like, that type of fighting, because it quite flows. A little bit like the MMA guys now, you know what I mean? They're training in the same type of arena, circular arena, cage, and the same type of thing. So it's got quite a lot going for it. I love it. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't know anything about karate styles when I started. I don't think most people do. I think most people go to a dojo because it's either got a good reputation in the area, just like a good boxing gym, like Repton or wherever. Boxing gyms have good names, and people will go to that one because it's got a really good name and they'll produce good boxers. Or their mums just look for somewhere to take them. Yeah. And the other thing is, you get the cowboys going around on doors going, knocking, saying, fill this form in. It's like double glazing form, and can your kid not afford to do karate? And they just, I could never do that, but they're just signing them up for a contract and getting them in. So for me, like, when I started, I decided that I liked it. It was tough, very raw. I mean, it's totally different from today, like. And when I signed up, that was me. I've been hooked on it ever since.
Roy, when you said that, at the start, you've got this very definite warm-up, I did Goju Ryu many, many years ago, and I consider it as like my spiritual home as a martial artist, even though I've done many other things since. Are you saying to me that wherever you do Goju Ryu, that warm-up that you do, we used to start with the head, we put our head forward and backwards and round and side to side, and then our shoulders, that wherever you go, you always do that system, almost like a system of Qigong?
Yeah, what it is I'm only talking about the IOGKF or the EGKA, our worldwide association. Take it honestly, he wants everyone to be healthy. Okay, he wants everyone to be healthy. So he's devised that we do this. We start at our feet, toes, ankles, go up, knees, hips, and then back, neck, shoulders, right through to the wrists. But the good thing about Hojo Undo, which is different from a lot of things, is near enough everything we do is about karate. So even when you're doing the warm-ups, you're doing that. This is part of Sanchin. So when you're doing the warm-ups, you're actually preparing yourself for doing kata or for training itself. Like these exercises, the Koke block is this way. When you're pulling your hands back for open-handed strikes, so everything you're doing on the warm-up is really for what you're going to do when you're training. So that you actually, the press-ups and sit-ups and that are just a stamina thing to warm the body up, to get you ready, your heart beating, push the blood down your body, get you ready. But you're loosening all the joints up, you're getting yourself ready to start training. And once you've done that, they're usually about 15 minutes, 20 minutes long. And then you can start doing the karate then. But if you come in off the street cold and start kicking and punching, you're going to have problems. really going to have problems. Your body's not. It's different when you have a fight. Because if you have a fight, your adrenaline fires into your body, and that kind of like gets you ready, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But when you just like normal, you can't just kick off training 100 mile an hour and expect to come out of it with no injuries. You will get injured. So, but that's how we do that.
Okay, one of the things I've sensed with you a lot, Roy, is that you seem to me like you're a very practical, hands-on, physical person. You love the training. You seem to eat, sleep, and breathe Goju Ryu. But what can you tell me about the, if you like, the philosophical roots of Goju Ryu karate, as opposed to, say, Wado Ryu, Shotokan, and the other styles? What's the history of Goju Ryu?
Well, I find that a very hard question, because I don't do the other styles, you know what I mean, that much. So I don't know that much. I'm quite I think I don't do weapons, you see. But the simple reason is I find it hard enough to do the karate, to do weapons. And some people like to do both. I particularly just want to train on karate. But for me, I think Goju Ryu it's obviously two styles joined together, hard and soft. So for me, doing karate is, I would say, for other people who are thinking about doing karate, you can either fit into one category and go into the other one a little bit, or fit into the other category and go into that one a bit. In other words, if you're a big guy, obviously the go side of it's going to be more beneficial to you.
The hard.
You're powerful. Yeah, you're powerful. So you might never be a ballet dancer, you know what I mean? But you might be able to stand there and have a row with someone. If you're like 15 or 16 stone in good condition, you're going to be a handful. Okay, so you got the juice side of Goju Ryu. So if you're 9 stone and not the biggest guy in the world, even though you're doing conditioning work and making your body stronger, so for combat, you can either use tai subaki, moving out the way, open-handed strikes, just be a little bit more clever with the way you do your karate. So there's something for everyone really in that one style. For me, Shotokan, for instance, great style. I mean, I've got some fantastic friends who like Chris Thomas from Haywood Karate Club, got world champions in his dojo, really good fighters. Just because they fight tournaments doesn't mean say they can't have a fight in the street. But I always think that in traditional Shotokan, the bigger guy will always beat the smaller guy, because of the way the styles mean. It's like full power all the time. They don't do a lot of jiu. So the little guy is always going to come up second best against the big guy. So that's my opinion anyway, from what I've seen. I remember talking to James Russo about it, and James Russo, it was Kanazawa's personal student, and he was a third dan in Shotokan, and that was his words to me. And he was a big South African. South Africans are naturally huge, but he was a big, strong South African, and that was his words. He said, I think that Shotokan, the bigger guy will always beat the smaller guy. If they're both same in ability, he'll always beat him because of the size, because he overpowered him in the end. The way the style is. So for me, Goju Ryu, it's a mixture of two things, and you can fit in either one or be good at the both, which is great if you can do it, So I like, for instance, now the chief instructor of South Africa at the moment, now back in Childwall, moves like a 10-stone man. Never seen footwork and agility out of a big guy like him. So it can be done. Okay,
you've raised an interesting question there that I want to put to you, because I was only taught Goju Ryu up to first dan level. So when I was taught it, I was told that if somebody gives a hard attack, right, and they're huge or they come in all guns blazing, then your best defense is a soft defense, not hitting hard with hard for full impact, but deflecting, absorbing, and deflecting away. If somebody comes with a soft attack, then you have to give a hard defense. But I'm aware that when we're on our journey, sometimes the teaching is given to us to match our level of understanding. So if I'd progressed with Goju Ryu to a further degree, then that teaching probably would have been nuanced. What's your response to that, though, Roy? Would you say that that's a fair way of putting it? Hard attack, soft defense, soft attack, hard defense.
I think can I just explain something to you? So maybe you know, when you get instructors, okay, to teach whatever they teach, okay, going back to years ago, it was quite basic. And if you're not, say, for instance, I go to Okinawan like twice a year to train with EGKA Sensei, okay, and all the time you're picking up little bits and bobs and you're getting technically better. And your ability to see something becomes totally different from when you're the first dan. That's why a lot of the katas use a thing called muchimi, like a sticky feeling. So you get someone doing, say, for instance, one of the senior katas, and it's very strong and powerful, but it's all like one pace. Like it's like you start it and finish, and there's no slowing down and anything like that. But when you watch one of the seniors do it, it's like different movements. They use kime, different things in the body. And it's like that when you see you fighting. Once you've been fighting for a little while, you react to things slightly different to whatever the attack is. How you look at the distancing and the timing. And for me, the best way to defend yourself is not being there. Okay, and I don't mean like running away, but it's not a bad thing to do sometimes if you think you get attacked. But to not be on the same line as the guy that's attacking you. So in other words, if you were coming head on straight at me, whether you were small, big, or whatever, and I could slip to the side of you and attack you from a different angle, you're the one that's going to be totally disadvantaged because you've got to move again to face me, to actually square up to me. But I've already done 3 or 4 techniques onto you, should have done, by the time you adjust. You see what I mean? So I think it's when it's basic, it's basic. Someone attacks hard, you do your best to either defend and then attack back, you know, like get out the way, get back in. But as you get a little bit more technical on it, that's why if you were 70, for instance, and a young guy attacked you, if you can get to the side off the angle and then attack him, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter the age, you're hitting him, and people, you know, this is only bone, you know what I mean? It can't say too much, you know what I mean? And so that's why I laugh sometimes when I see like EGKA Sensei hitting the Makawara, how conditioned his hands are. I was talking to another senior and I said to him, it is so conditioned. I said, how hard does your hand have to be to hit someone on the jaw? You know what I mean? The Okinawans might take it to that extreme that you stand there. I was in his dojo one day and he hit that post, honestly, for an hour, the back of his hand, for an hour, each hand. Unbelievable, you know what I mean? But how hard does your hand have to be to hit someone in the face? So if you do Makawara training, how much do you do? Do you do it every single day, or what? I think it's personal, you know, what you want to do. So if you can get out the way of something, that's the best means of defense as it is. A classic example, you know, you talk to people and one guy said, if you see someone in a pub, for instance, he's staring at you, you just have to catch his eye, and he comes over and goes, who are you looking at? And you went, where did you get that shirt from, mate? It's fantastic. Right away, it's going to kill the argument. He's going to go, what? He's just admiring your shirt, you know. So it's self-defense and it's self-defense, you know what I mean? There's different things. So if you're fighting someone, the best thing for me, I think, is just not being in his way. When he comes forward, you either get off, move to the side, or if you can, block and counter. That's why basics are so important.
So, Roy, earlier on, you mentioned something about the equipment that is used in Goju Ryu. And like you, when I first did Goju Ryu, as far as I was concerned, I was just doing karate. It was only after I'd started that I realised that actually at the time, it was mostly Shotokan everywhere else and somewhat Ryu. And the equipment that we used, I just took that as part of karate without realising that was unique to Goju Ryu. Talk us through some of the equipment. What do you use in Goju Ryu?
Well, one of the main things is Makawara, like striking post, okay, and that is to condition your hand. And what it does is you have the ball and socket joint. That's the socket, that's the ball, and it closes the distance between the two, so there's no gap. So when you hit something hard, the shock of the ball hitting the socket usually breaks the socket. But what all you're doing is you're closing that. It's not about getting big saggy bumps on your hands, by the way. They're just the condition that happens with it. And so you keep hitting that, and it conditions your hand for that shock. Okay. A lot of boxers, where I used to train in the gym in Liverpool, Gym 21, and a lot of lads. I work on the door myself. I've since I was 19, and I have loads of experiences with things. And a lot of the lads used to come in on a Monday morning after working the weekend, and they'd have broken hands, because usually when they're hitting the bags and that, they wrap up, so that the fist is more like that with the wrap on it in the glove.
Yeah.
Well, when they take the wrapping off, they tend not to squeeze the fist tight. So when they hit someone, they hit it with the wrong part of the hand, or the shock of the hand hitting an object like the top of the head or something can actually hurt them. You know what I mean? So I don't care whether someone puts their arm up. If I hit that, I'm going to hit it. You know what I mean? I'm not really, because I do Makawara, I'm not really that bothered. So as long as my fist is in the proper position, like closed tight, the knuckles will most probably get by, you know what I mean? So that's one of the main things. And then you use the Makawara to move around it eventually and start doing different things on it, just like hitting a bag. The post is standing still one. A bag is like a moving one. So if you're hitting a bag, you can move around the bag, different positions. So that's for the striking. You have these jars it has a lip on it, usually fits the side of your hand. You grab it with your thumb. Can you see that yet?
Yeah.
You thumb this part of your fingers, and that is to strengthen your grip with your fingers. And you walk with it, do Sanchin, and walk forwards, do steps, and it's behind your back. And that's like if you grab someone in this position, no type thing, if you latch onto them or grab the wrist so they can't get away, or the skin, if you're grabbing chunks of skin on them as an attack, or as a defense. Chishi, strength stone, it's just a piece of wood, long like dowel, with a concrete block on the end of it. Again, some people have been too heavy. I don't know why they do this. You do repetitions with chishi. So you do like 10, like you would do with a dumbbell. You might do 10, 20, 30. But some people make them that heavy, they can only do about 3. And they're injuring themselves, don't realise it. But it's like everything. If you pick a barbell up and started lifting it, it's too heavy, it's going to be a problem. So the chishi is the same. You want to get it so you can start training with it and do repetitions on both hands. You could do a class just on that alone. You've got the Convoken, okay? It's like a paper clip. And that was developed from Hawaii, and it moves like a human being when you get older because it's curved. So you do exercises with it, presses with it, throw it around a bit. And there's all sorts of this modern stuff. There's stuff you put on your feet, so you put them on your feet. So if you're doing kicks, it's like having a wrist weight, an ankle weight on your feet. There's loads and loads of different bits of equipment you can use, and modern day equipment, if you like. People use now the elastic bands. You tie the elastic band to the Makawara and punch with it. So you're struggling to punch, or use hand weights. So I think there's a vast array now of different equipment you can use, especially as traditional and modern. I think the two of them work well together.
Okay, a couple of questions for you. Firstly, when it comes to the weight of a shishi, what would you say the ideal weight would be? Say for you or I, who are both about 175 centimeters, 12, 13 stone. How heavy should the shishi be?
I got told years ago that it should be like 10% of your body weight. So, but I don't know. I think some people are like, you get a scaffolder. You see this like little scaffolder throwing 90-pound scaffolding tubes up in the air all day. His tendon strength is remarkable. So I think what you should do is start with the smallest one, and then if you feel that's okay, and get a bigger one. And I think don't start big and then find out that it'll make you not want to do it. It make you uncomfortable, and you don't want to do it. So I think start off with a small one until you start to struggle. When you start struggling at say 10, you do 10 reps. Because some of the exercises you do, you have to take them over your shoulder. Your shoulder's really burning. One of the things Shishi does is your grip as well, because you've got to hold it out straight, and it wants to open your hand like that. So your grip's important as well. So I think, personally for me, I would make one smaller than bigger, and then once you get adequately better with it, you know, they start feeling more comfortable, then it's just like we would with a dumbbell, put a bit more on, make one a bit bigger. So I got them for the girls in the dojo, smaller ones, but they eventually get their own made bigger to suit themselves. You know what I mean? So I think it's an hard one really. It all depends on your mental strength and your physical strength. But don't start big. Always start small and then work up.
All right, Roy. So it would be fair to say that if you wanted to pin something down as unique with Goju Ryu, or, you know, specialized in Goju Ryu, body conditioning and preparing the body for a fight, if you like, is a real characteristic.
Yeah, it's a major part. Like Sanchin, Sanchin's everything in Goju Ryu. Everything comes from Sanchin. If you don't do Sanchin, if you do a kata like Sanchin, for instance, you won't see any muchimi in it. You won't see any gripping and pulling. Sanchin's a kata that was developed for bigger people. There's no kicks in it. It's all about pulling and grabbing and striking like that. So it's noticeable in that kata more than anything else, that if you don't do Sanchin, it comes out in that. That's why when I see, not against sports karate, okay? I'm going on against it. I think it's great, you know, for young ones and that. But you don't see many people training 50, 60 that do sports karate. You know, it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to go there and do that, you know, like jumping around, throwing my legs around and everything when you get a bit older. But also the kata, when I look at the kata, it's too snappy, you know what I mean? They're doing Goju kata, but they're not doing it like it's done in Okinawa, which bugs me a little bit really. If you do something that's a traditional karate, you should do it the way it should be done, not the one to make it look aesthetically good, you know what I mean? So it's all like flick, 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 flick. So when you do Sanchin, everything comes from that Sanchin, everything. And people have been talking about core strength for years now. Sanchin's got all the core strength you want, because your back has got to be straight. There's nothing around you. If I laid on a bench and got a 10 kilo or 20 kilo disc on either side, pressed it, the bench supports me, okay, so I can press more and more. But if you're pushing someone away, you haven't got anything behind you. So your stance and your grip and the way you go into the floor. I always say to people, imagine you're 3 inches further into the floor than what you are, and that's your base. And then the Sanchin type of breathing, like a bicycle pump, you breathe it in and then out. Okay, so that type kind of training gives you power to go forwards when you haven't got anything behind you to make you have that strength. So without doing Sanchin, Goju Ryu's like nothing really.
Okay, talk us through a little bit more about the body conditioning elements of Sanchin, because I know that when people have trained in Sanchin for a while, the sensei would come and start striking them in a very strategic, methodical way, so that they've got to remain focused and continue with the form while they're being struck. I don't want to put off people who've never done Goju Ryu, but just talk us through the striking process and the reasoning behind it.
Okay, it's called shime. And the first thing, well, a lot of people don't understand about it is you're actually checking the person's physical being when he's doing Sanchin. So you start at the feet, you go down, you check that the whole of the foot's attached to the floor, there isn't an arch. Then you check the calf muscles, the knees, the thighs, the buttocks are tight, it's pulled in, your stomach's tight, your lats are tight, and everything else. And only then, when the posture's straight, if the posture's not straight, then you adjust them, align them. And then if the posture's straight and everything's right, then when they punch and they focus the punch and they breathe out, and you get that, and it's all out, and everything's tight. You put your hands on the shoulders to let it know it's coming, and then you slap down on the end of the shoulders, so the power goes into the hip and then into the floor. Okay, and when you hit down on it to see whether the body's tight, because if it wasn't, you'd move one way or the other, something could happen. And the funny thing about shimmy is you're okay after you've been hit the first time, because once you've been hit once, that it's a mental thing as well. You've got to obviously put that out of your mind that you're getting tested. And once you've been hit once and that initial sting goes, to me, really, it doesn't matter how many times you get hit. You kind of like blank it out then. So it's a little bit of conditioning for your brain as much as it is for your body to actually do the kata, do it. We done it in Sweden once. We went down to we were on a European gas tube training with Sanchin, about 9 hours in the room. And he said, traditional Sanchin. And I thought, okay. So we done Sanchin. And he started at this end. It's cold. He started at the one end, and he tested every one of us, one after another. And it was like waiting to get the cane at school. I was cold when I went in, but by the time Sensei got to me, I was sweating buckets. And then he just unleashed it, you know what I mean? And when we went back, after that session, we went to the main class. I took my jacket off to get a little wipe down, and my shoulders were black, completely black, with little stains of blood, like a blister coming through. That's how much he hit us, And the students were going, wow, what happened there, But it doesn't register with you because you're in the moment, if you know what I mean. I know it sounds quite sadistically stupid, but it's just part of what you do, You just get yourself focused and do the kata. Anyone who Goju practitioner who does proper traditional Goju Ryu, doesn't matter whether with us or whatever style of Goju Ryu, they'll all have had to do shimmy. They'll all have been tested one way or the other. But it's not a bad thing.
I seem to remember people coming up, because obviously you've got your hands out in front and checking how solid and sturdy the fists were in position, being struck on the belly, slapped on the belly to make sure that was tense, and also I seem to remember them coming behind and trying to kick up between the legs, because if you're in proper sanction, the foot doesn't make it to your all importance, and they're withdrawn anyway by the stance. And being kicked on the side of the thighs to make sure that they were solid as well. Have I missed anything?
No. Don't forget, sometimes, when you were doing Goju Ryu, it was quite a few years ago, most probably when you've seen that. It's like everything else, with proper knowledge, things move on, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying to you, when I first started, it was really brutal. It was brutal. And not a lot of people stayed to it, you know what I mean? But I don't know why I liked it. But all you're testing for is the muscle group is tight. So there's no need to thigh kick someone if you don't want to. You can do it with this flat of your hand. You squeeze the leg first, and then you'll shock it to make sure it's going to stay tight. Whether you use your hand or your shin when you're testing, it's not about the punishment to the person. It's about testing the person, whether they are actually strong in the areas that you want to test, if you like. You do kick up to the backside to make sure that the muscles in the legs and the buttocks are tight, and you can't get to the groin. You can do it from the front as well, by the way. We do hit the stomach, but I've seen people getting punched in the throat and stupid things like that. It's not about how much punishment the guy can take. It's about to see whether the height and the breathing's right, and that's mainly what it's about. It's not about punishing the person for doing the kata. It's about seeing whether the person's kata is correct and strong, and the breathing's strong. The breathing's the main thing. And the other thing is too, we were over in Sensei's dojo once, and one of the lads from New Zealand was doing Sanchin. Funny enough, a guy from England that was testing him was a chiropractor. And then he looked at his back and he went, can everyone just stop for a second and come and have a look at this? And he come over, and the guy's spine went like that. And he said to him, he told him what the technical term was. And he fixed him while he was there, he said he'd have to go again a couple of times. But what he said is, when you do Sanchin, you're actually checking the guy out as well. If everything looks in place. If you see something that's like gone on an angle like his was, you can actually help him by saying, look, you've got a problem there, mate. You want to get that seen to. Or if he's standing and his body, his shoulders, one's down here and one's up there, there's obviously something wrong either in the hip or in his back or something. You can actually tell him. So it's not just about beating him up. It's about helping him do a better kata, really. That's what it's all about.
Okay, I'm glad that you said that, because in some ways we've covered some of the brutality or potential brutality of Goju Ryu training. Certainly when I did it many years ago, I felt as though I was doing the hard stuff, and some other people were not really doing martial arts. They were weak-willed, they were mentally soft and all the rest of it. But Goju Ryu really is for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's for longevity as well. You can't get someone to come in your dojo and go do 100 press-ups. If you can't do them, you can't do them. And all this shouting and punching and beating won't make him do the 100 press-ups. What you should be doing is trying to encourage him, teach him a certain way so he could do more, and maybe eventually you get to 100 press-ups. I think the philosophy behind training has changed. I think for the better, by the way. You know what I mean? Because I think if you're trying to encourage people to get better, you're not trying to stop them from reaching their goal. So that's why age really doesn't come into it for me. I've got a guy that trains me, he comes to me for anger management, and he had a bad hip and he was 50 years of age. And he's still with me now, and he's 81. And he's a fifth dan now. And he was a real fighter when he was a kid, when he was younger. He was a terror, he always fight. And it's actually, there's one thing for me that Goju Ryu or karate in general can do is we've got 52 countries in the IOGKF all around the world, and in every one of them countries, I train with the instructor or the students, we're like family. We are like family. So you've got the EGKA, the English Association, which is like a family. Anything happens, you pick a phone call up. Does anyone know we can get this? Yes, I know someone, I'll get it for you. Same with the IOGKF. If one of my students got stuck in Portugal, I'd phone George Montero up, the chief instructor of Portugal. George, could you look after this guy for me? He's stuck, whatever's happened. No problem, I'll do it. It happened to Sensei and his daughter in India, and the chief instructor of India got her on a flight the next day out of India because he knew someone who owned an airline over there. And so, you know what I mean? So we're all training together. We're all trying to kill each other when we're doing stuff, when we're doing Ippon Kumite or Kumite, if it's whatever, you're fighting and you're about to each other at the end, and you talk and you socialise. If everyone in the world done that, we know wars. Because everyone would be friends. Because I've got the instructors in Argentina are like brothers, but we've got that conflict with Argentina. It's always in the back of their mind that we had a war against them. They want something that we've got, type thing. But that never comes out. So if everyone done martial arts or done karate, whatever it is, I think the world would be a better place, because they are like family. They are really like brothers and sisters. So I think karate is a wonderful martial arts. And I won't just say karate. I think martial arts in general is a wonderful thing, really, for people to get on with each other.
Okay, well, Roy, we're going to be ending the interview shortly, so I just want to ask you, before we go on to the thank yous, is there anything that we haven't covered today about Goju Ryu that you think is important that should be mentioned? Specifically Goju Ryu.
No, I think we mentioned in the Sanchin and the actual camaraderie of training, and the way things have changed in training from 50 years ago when I started. I think most things are covered. I think people get the wrong impression of karate. For instance, you talk to different stylists and go, oh, that's no good. Everybody's got something to add to something. Everybody's got a skill. You just don't know what it is till you get it brought out of them. Like you can get fellas who can go to a gym and do boxing, but they'll never be a pro boxer. They'll look great on the bag, but they'll never be a pro boxer because there's something lacking. When you get in the ring, it's not there. and it's like everything else. But I think for health reasons, for mental reasons, for health reasons, and for having like another family that you didn't have before you started, I think doing martial arts is one of the best things you can possibly do. So Goju for me is it is the badge. This badge, that's the family crest, and that's the world. So it's in the world together as a group, and that's the family crest of Iguana Sensei. So for me, like it is what it is. I just like to train, and I just like going away on gas views and meeting people and training with people, and you know, there's a lot of things you could do a lot worse than doing martial arts. But I'm 67 now, and I'm still up for most things. You know what I mean? So it's kept me going.
Are you still on the doors, Roy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually look after a hotel. It's owned by the Duke of Westminster, and I just like say yes or no, whatever. And I mean, but I think the thing about doing door work is I always treat people as I'd want to be treated myself. I don't. You're going to be in that job for 5 minutes if you think you're hard kicks. If you think you can just do what you want to do. One, the police wouldn't let you work. Two, people in general. Someone tougher out there than what you are. People got to remember that. You know what I mean? So I'm just like a product of life. You know what I mean? I just treat people like really as they should be treated. Really. If it isn't going to be this, it's not going to be that. I'm not changing my mind. It's just the way it is.
Well, Roy, you've been an excellent ambassador for Goju Ryu because you seem to have the hard skills and the soft skills. But look, what I'd say is, since you've been so generous with your time, if somebody wants to train with you, obviously they can find Goju Ryu or karate or any martial art where they are around the country. But if somebody wanted to train with you or get in touch, how would they find you?
Well, they can actually get me on my email address and royflatt@btinternet.com or Childwall Karate Academy or EGKA. There's a list of dojos and stuff on the EGKA if you get in touch with them. You know, if you Google Roy Flatt, for instance, it comes up information. So a funny thing was one of my friends said to me, "I can't believe when you Google Roy Flatt, it comes up above Roy Chubby Brown."
Possibly for the better. Yeah. Sorry, Roy Chubby Brown. So, listen, Roy, I want to thank you very much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and you've given us a lot of insight, and you've really opened your heart. And you know, you can tell when you interview somebody whether they're being rehearsed or they're just saying it as it is. And you've given us a really honest and an open review of what Goju Ryu is and what martial art is. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I just want all your listeners and everyone you're dealing with just to stay safe and make sure that everyone stays train hard, stay safe.
For everybody else who's watching today, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, do subscribe so you can see more videos where I'll be exploring other martial arts and other subjects relating to mental, physical and spiritual well-being. Thank you very much. And as Roy says, take care.